Robert Hicken is president of the PII Foundation, as well as being founder and CEO of GPNow. He is focused on ensuring that the world's most vulnerable people can access secure, high-definition, low-bandwidth, multilingual telehealth and virtual care services that are desperately needed. He's been on the channel before, and today we're specifically going to be talking about his service, Ukraine CrisisCare, an absolutely essential online medical service that provides advice and support to Ukrainian displaced people, of which there at the start of the conflict were more than 7 million. It's now difficult actually to calculate how many are spread across European countries and elsewhere, but there is an urgent need to provide both healthcare and mental health support to these many millions of civilians. Robert, welcome back to the channel.
Hi, Jonathan. It's good to be back, my friend. Thank you so much for the opportunity to meet you again and talk to your audience.
Well, you're providing an essential service. When we last talked, we were much closer to that refugee crisis. We were much closer to the everyday issues of people trying to reestablish their lives. That, unfortunately, is now in the third year. Many of those people may have settled down, they may still be moving on, but has the nature of the problems that your service is addressing, has that changed, or does it remain fundamentally the same?
Yes, it has changed. I think, as you rightly point out, we're now in our third year of service. At the acute stage, when we had 90,000 people flooding across the border from Ukraine, mainly mothers and children, while the men were left behind to take care of business, it was very intense, massive amount of fear, uncertainty, and doubt. And where am I going? What am I going to be doing? And then we stepped in, and we were originally going to just provide primary care access by connecting Ukrainian doctors with Ukrainian refugees who were also refugees themselves. Then I think in the second stage, there was sort of like adapting to the new environment. And that was last year. This year, we're seeing, I think, with particularly in Ukraine, because like you say, with all the displacement that's been going on, there's about, I think, 3 million people within Ukraine that have been displaced. And we see something like 8,000 people in, I believe, in Kharkiv region right now being evacuated and so forth. So there's a lot of movement going on and a lot of fatigue and that sense of hope and positivity. People are getting really, really drained just by the longevity of it. That's what we're seeing right now. And we're getting people calling up in quite bad condition, needing immediate support. I think I mentioned before we started recording the young mother in Kharkiv who we earlier this week was in very bad shape, and luckily we've been able to get to her and help. But it seems to be the demand for the service is continuing. We still get 10, 15 patients registering every single day. And with more and more hospitals and clinics being damaged or destroyed, the actual demand is rising. And the spread of the conflict beyond sort of the mainly concentrated like it was predominantly on the eastern side of the country. Now we've got Lviv and Odessa and other places getting regularly attacked. So I think fatigue, Jonathan, and sense of hopelessness and just running out of energy is really what we're seeing coming through with the patients, and it's tragic. It's a horrible thing to witness.
So demand is clearly going up. Demand is not going away, and for as long as Russia continues its hostilities, that demand is likely to continue rising. But as we know, Ukraine, one of the reasons why this channel exists, as well as other ones, it's to keep Ukraine and these issues in top of mind, because the mainstream media is not covering the stuff in as much detail. There are obviously, fantastic oases of journalistic integrity, such as the Telegraph's, Ukraine, the latest. Times Radio does a lot of good stuff, and there are a few sort of channels like that, as well as, YouTubers and so on. But it sometimes does feel it's in a bubble. So as the need goes up, the coverage is going down. I have to ask the sensitive question, does that mean that funding has become a lot more precarious? And what on earth do we do about that?
Yeah, absolutely. It is. It is. Yeah, we're not. Ukraine's gone from. That's the other big shift. It's gone from being front page, the whole world really looking at everything through a magnifying glass back in 2022. It's now on. You could say it's not even on the back pages. It's definitely still there, but Steve at Staffordshire, one of our board members of the PII Foundation, is in Canada. He's also chairman of the Dnipro Oshwa Fund, and he was talking to a charity um, recently, and first year they were don't funding for Ukraine was relatively straightforward, and we were very blessed to be supported by Amazon Web Services in 2022, but it stopped at the end of 2022. That charity that Steve was talking about, they raised 2.2 million in the first few months of the war. Last year they raised 800,000, and this year they've only raised 30,000. The money has dried up, and our journey is almost identical. We had about 200,000 from Amazon, and we also had credits and support to get the service stood up, and it was incredible. And the trajectory, we were over 1,000 patients per month because we were able to pay our doctors on time, and everything was terrific. Last year, we had to switch from being funded to being self-funded. And as you rightly point out, the first 6 months, we had lots of what I call tie kickers, would be a bit unfair, but people who were like fantastic, doing great things, common sense solution, connecting Ukrainian doctors with Ukrainian patients anywhere in the world. It's a brilliant concept, blah, blah, blah. But could we get corporate or private sector or public sector support from outside of Ukraine or inside around the world? No, we couldn't. And we were then told to go to America and North America for support. And we, without, as you rightly point out, without the Team Telegraph and Ukraine the latest, and with Silicon Curtain as well, it's Joe Public that has actually put their hand in their pocket and saved us. We would never have got to the end of 2023 without the podcast with you and the podcast that we had with Ukraine the latest. But it's a monthly battle for us. We need $10,000 a month. We get a chunk of change. We've got backlog to clear. And then all of a sudden, every month, instead of focusing on what we really want to be doing, we're passing the cap around, asking for help. Help us, help us, help us. And it's getting harder and harder and harder. I haven't paid my doctors for 4 months now. Then they're still going online and still providing the service. And they believe that we will be in a position to clear the backlog, but they don't have confidence that they're going to get paid. They've got to put food on the table, so they go work in villas, cleaning villas, and so forth. And it means, and then come home and go online. It's suboptimal, and for such a small amount to help so many people, every $10,000 that we have, we can help 1,000 families. And every month we're just struggling to get. We haven't. 5 months, I think we've raised about 13,000, and without Steve and the Dnipro Oshwa Fund this year, we would have been under. We're on the edge every single month, and I know it's the same. People like Credit Union Relief Fund in America who want to support, partner with us, they're struggling as well. Everyone's getting crickets. It's crickets. It's a lot of talk, but it's cricket. So the whole ecosystem of like-minded people who want to help Ukraine. It's not just that they're just suddenly, there's just nothing out there. There's no one, people are fatigued. Anyway,
But
that's the situation.
that, as we know, is the Russian strategy. All along, they have wanted or thought that once it became clear they couldn't take Kiev in 3 days or 10 days or 20 days or whatever the figures are that are bandied around. I think they realized very quickly that an attritional strategy was the one to adopt, and the one that the West wouldn't have the staying power to stick with. And I think, yes, it is testing everybody. There are those in the bubble. So, I mean, the first port of call, of course, is going to be to see, whether we can get the bubble infused, and we'll share some ideas off here. But if anyone watching this video is interested, we will be putting all the required links to Robert's charity, to the activities. You can go and look at the case studies and all those details and understand more about how it works. We'll put all of those links, of course, into the video, and I do strongly encourage people to check that out, because the work that's taking place is not something that, say, the local health services provide. This is something absolutely essential to displaced Ukrainians. It is helping them get the right diagnosis for physical conditions, but it is also helping with the crucial mental conditions. And those often will go untreated and unexpressed because of things like language barrier, because of them not, knowing the ins and outs of the system, not being able to, say, fully express that to someone who actually understands all the cultural nuances and even understands what they've gone through. So let's talk about some of that. Let's talk about the range of sort of conditions and problems and how this service is able to save lives, not just from physical conditions, but people who, may choose to end their lives if they weren't getting the kind of support that your service provides.
Well, yeah, it's very hard to get any empirical data on how many lives we may or may not have saved. I mean, we certainly know someone like Anastasia, the young girl who had chondral chordoma, the life-threatening throat and neck cancer, who is now doing very well. Since we spoke, she did have a relapse, and she had to go back into the Leiden Medical University for another round of surgery in February. And she was, again, only given 1 to 2 months, but she's doing fine. She is the embodiment of the Ukrainian fighting spirit. Young girl just refuses to quit. But the other areas that where we've got other challenges, PTSD, for example, we're dealing. You don't know who you've pulled back from the edge. You don't know, but we've got amazing doctors like Dr. Kuzmik and who helped this young girl that reached out to us this week. It's hard to tell exactly how many. Yeah, we know that we've helped 11,000 families. We know that we've helped about 5,000 children. We know we're the only, and this isn't tooting our horn, but we're the only telemedicine, telehealth service that is going into occupied territory. We do have doctors there risking their lives. I can't say how many or whatever, but and these are Ukrainian citizens who cannot get healthcare unless they're being forced, to change citizenship if they want healthcare. That's a human rights violation. Never
And
mind all
even
the
then, the
rest of it.
healthcare is probably discriminatory and not particularly amazing anyway.
Absolutely. And just so, as we say, Jonathan, it's a subtle point, but it's such an important point. It's not just medical advice. And we've got, thanks to Dr. Ilyashenko, who's our chief medical officer at the Obery Clinic, we have 75 really top-notch Ukrainian doctors across all specialities. We're always only going to do primary care, but and 60 are outside of the country and able to practice. So that medical drain, that medical talent that's been forced out of the country is still being used to provide comfort and care as well. And I can't put a number on just a Ukrainian mother talking about her child to one of our doctors in Ukrainian, instead of getting frustrated through no fault of the German or the French or the Czech or the Dutch or God bless the Dutch, they're amazing. But just having that, it's impossible. But common sense tells you that it is making a difference. And again, it's not what we're doing, it's what we're not doing. We can easily do, we know that we could go up to 500,000 sessions a month. AWS and all the planning when the war started and we were forecasting 5 million refugees outside the country, it's the platform's designed to do much, much more, and we've got access to the doctors to scale. It's tragic that as the demand is going up, and it is continuing to go up, and it will, because of all these additional complications, that we are struggling just to keep a baseline going. And so, in terms of, thank you for the call to action there about funding for us. What we desperately need is not the peaks and troughs. We need a stable line of credit, for want of a better term, of $10,000 a month, so that we pay our infrastructure costs and then we pay our doctors, and the doctors don't have to go out to work. And so if people are thinking of making a contribution, if you're thinking of donating, like let's say, for example, you want to donate $100 as a one-off, what would help us a lot more is donate $10, which is one free session, and then but make it a monthly contribution. Then we know that we guaranteed that we're going to be able to service the bills each month, and not have to put Tanya and Evgenia, who are constantly dealing with the doctors, who are saying, "Are we going to get paid this month? Are we going to get paid this month? Oh, sorry. And by the way, we've got this little chunk here, and we're going to ration that out. And then who's going to? It's just suboptimal." And I don't know. A lot of people say to me, "I don't know any of all the." I think United 24 raised $600 million, and they have a humanitarian medical aid. We don't want much. I don't know anything that delivers 1,000 patients for $10,000. I don't know anything that does that. And we're going into occupied territory. And there's much more we can do. We want to do there's programs with spinal cord injury that we've got a very close neuro moves and to help all of there's a massive, obviously spinal cord injuries in peacetime are very different to spinal cord injury in wartime. And we've got a program we can bring in. Dr. Ilyushenko would love to bring that into Ukraine. Well, we can do that because we brought it into Australia. It's called NeuroMoves. We've helped thousands of quadriplegics and paraplegics in Australia. We've got autistic people in need of help. The PTSD program, the brain spotting reverse cognitive brain therapy for young, particularly girls who've been traumatized, with our two, Ludmilla and Valentina, who are specialized in this. They're doing extraordinary. There's much more work we can do. All the orphans and so forth. We've got a list of programs that we know that we could deliver if we had funding. If there's someone out there who really wants to make a difference and will back us, I think we've earned our stripes. If they will back us, we will deliver. My team will deliver. They're incredible. We've got great technology, but we've got an amazing team, and we can deliver.
I mean, corporate sponsorship is another one, and when I'm not sure I'd actually been to Ukraine when we last talked. I'll have to go and look back at the date of that. But when I was in Lviv, I did go and visit the Superhuman Center, and it was kind of quite interesting talking to them there. It's a state-of-the-art facility. It's obviously in huge demand for people who've lost limbs, or veterans who've lost limbs. They are treating, of course, the tip of the iceberg because they can only deal with a certain number of patients a month. I think it's 50 a month. The expense, of course, is very high to not just create the prosthetics, but all of the physical and physiological and psychological support that they offer. But they're sort of scaling up. But that's primarily funded through corporate sponsorship. And very much they're looking for what you said there, which is corporate sponsorship on a repeat basis rather than one-off donations. So again, if anyone watching this, great if they feel generous as individuals, but actually, if you are able to reach out to corporate entities, or you know of corporate entities who may want to get involved with this and provide regular funding to keep, to ensure the service not just keep the lights on, but ensure that it actually has the stable funding to scale. And potentially to sort of publicize it and increase the rate of patients sign up, then that's something that anyone watching this could do. And I think for all those who sort of watch these videos and despair, and it's very easy, I think, to fall into despair. Something I've learned from a couple of Ukrainians involved in Maidan, where that happened against the odds. And also, some of you might have watched Denis Zakharov on the channel, who is a very uh, eclectic Russian oppositionist taking huge risk. I mean, he said to me something, the best cure for despair is to take action. So anyone watching this who is in despair and maybe have limited funds themselves, well, there's plenty you could do. Pick up a phone, pick up a directory, get on the web, reach out to people and try and, create sponsorship. Talking of tip of the iceberg, right? Now, we've talking about physiological conditions largely so far, but that is just the tip of the iceberg because PTSD, not just amongst displaced persons, but amongst the increasing number of veterans, um, that is a vast problem, and I'm guessing no one's even really scratched the surface of that yet.
There are a number of initiatives. It has been identified. Lady Zelenska has her foundation are focused on mental health initiatives. I think she's picked up that particular bailiwick for children, as not so much for soldiers, ex-military, and so forth. Um, we have access to plenty of psychologists to address this, but again, it's all around. We need the funding and resources to deploy. We can implement it, but the demand is exactly it's there now, and it's going to be there for a long time. Even when the war's over and everything's in the rebuilding phase, the damage the damage that's been done now is going to need lots of TLC for a long time. And Jonathan, I just want to hark back to the sponsorship thing for a moment. We have built a hospital in the cloud. It's super, super secure. It's delivered 17,000 free telehealth sessions. It's helped 11,000 families, about 4,000 to 5,000 children, and 3,000 hours of uninterrupted service. If anyone wants to sponsor it, and we will put their logo on, so every time a patient logs in, they will see your company logo. Could be Silicon Curtain, but that will be up there, and that's really, that will mean, my God, that would mean the world for us. Meanwhile, and then we can start to look at all these value-added services. So we've now got a nice, stable, sustainable model. Everything's working and growing, and then we can start bringing all these value-added services in on top of it. Imagine that. And not just during, as I say, I think the rebuilding phase, 1,500 hospitals and clinics have been damaged or destroyed. Mr. Putin's boys have tried everything they can to bring us down. We've had hundreds of cyber attacks. And thanks to being powered and protected by our friends at Amazon Web Services, zero downtime. But we run out of funds and a flick of a switch and we vanish. And something Putin's boys couldn't do will happen for as little as $10,000 a month.
And it's very difficult to resurrect, isn't it? I mean, all of that investment in terms of the technology, the time, the processes, and especially the team of medical professionals that you've got. If you have a break in service, then it'd be really difficult to build that back up again.
Absolutely. I mean, remember when we were launching the service back in 2022, and there was this intense passion, and everyone had a can-do attitude, and we all came together and we worked round the clock to stand this all up. Now, imagine you turn it off. All of a sudden, the patients can't connect with the doctors disperse. then you've got to restart. Restarting the service is not just about flicking a switch. You've then got to rebuild it again, build momentum behind it, and people are going to be, well, once the genie's out of the bowl, you can't put it back in. Um, it'll be 10 times harder to stand it up now than it was back in 2022. It could be done, but it'll take at least 6 months to turn it back on, at least. Whereas we did it in 6 weeks back in 2022. So, yeah,
Yeah.
it's horrible spending so much time and energy passing the cap round, and I feel like back being a boy back in London on Guy Fawkes, and penny for the guy, and it's exhausting, it's tiring, and it's there are better things we could do if we had someone backing us.
It must have been something like that many Ukrainians are feeling about the shortage of ammunition. Just we know what the problem is. We know how to deal with it. We're not asking, foreign governments or foreign boots on the ground or whatever. We're not putting a burden on your health systems or your etc. Just give us the tools to do the job. And you're in a very similar position. You've got the tools, they're there, they're ready to go, and it's not a huge ask to make it
That's
happen.
Jonathan, that's one of the things that keeps us going. Every time we start feeling sorry for ourselves and we have a little pity party about how hard this is, and it shouldn't be that hard, I think about all of the Ukrainian soldiers that have died and spilled their blood to defend land, land that is now being lost because the resource funding and resources, that's the commonality. It's wrong for us to even try to compare what we're going through with what they've gone through. They have died to defend that land, and now if they lose it, they're going to have to die again to win it back, and never should have happened. And there are people who have to look long and hard in the mirror. You cannot say you're going to back Ukraine and then not back Ukraine. You cannot believe in effective altruism and not live and breathe it. You have to back it up. And just terrible. So when we're feeling bad, we go, oh, right, well, okay, it's nothing compared to what the Ukrainian army, the armed forces are going through.
But the
And we're
commonality
blessed
is
to
the
have
lack of
people like
strategic thinking, isn't it? The lack of strategic planning, the lack of strategic thinking, the lack of urgency. This is the commonality with what you're experiencing and the example we just gave there. And your service, as you say, there's no equivalent service that would offer the cost effectiveness of reach and quality of service, the number of people per dollar or pound or euro that are actually given support. Um,
mm.
and
And
not funding it is, in my view, a strategic failure.
Jonathan, we have an amazing ambassador for our charity. His name is Spencer Cash. He's a retired major medivac pilot. So he had of 6 wars, and he's the guy, like in MASH with the Red Cross on the helicopter. They're the ones that go in without any armory. Well, I think he only had his pistol. He's probably saved more lives, American lives around the world in places like Kandahar and Afghanistan and so than anyone else. Spencer has been to the previously occupied territory hosted by Ruslan, and he has seen what's happened there, and he has said he's never seen anything this bad anywhere in the world, and he is our biggest champion. He will stand up and tell anybody about the value of what we're doing behind enemy lines across Ukraine and around the world. Number one person. And when you have someone like that encouraging you and supporting you, you can't throw in the towel. You have to keep going. And then there's the team, our doctors and clinical care team. They're just amazing. Anyway,
It's
that's
an
that's
it's an incredible job you and your team are doing, Robert. I'm so delighted that we could get you back on the channel and I only wish it was under better circumstances, and you say not having to come and constantly sell the benefits of what you're doing, but it is what it is, and we have to do this. So yeah, we're going to be working together to try and get the message out, connect you with more people in the bubble. Who can sort of extend your reach and hopefully get this concept in front of the right people. And if anyone in the audience is watching and they think they've got an idea of how they can help, then get in touch, reach out to Robert on LinkedIn, uh, and we'll put all those details in there. Just reach out directly, and no collaboration, I think, is too small, but yeah, we need people to become activists, not just passive consumers of information, not sitting there despairing at that all is lost, etc. That is not a Ukrainian attitude. We need people to get on and start innovating solutions to this. So, Robert, thank you so much to you and all your team, and thanks for coming back on the channel again.
Jonathan, it's such a joy to talk with you. You give so much to so many people with your podcast. It is extraordinary. John Spiteri and Kirsty McCauley from 7.62 Flowers, who were on the last podcast, send their best. They have released on BANDCAMP their beautiful song, No War in Ukraine, and they've prepared an amazing song for Christmas as well. So we are surrounded by wonderful, good people who keep us going, and we will keep going. We're never going to give up. And thanks to you and Silicon Curtain for giving us the opportunity to talk to your audience today. And yeah, God bless you. Slava Ukraine.
Heroyam Slava.